YouTube battle community, St. Vincent fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about St. Vincent's 2011 album, Strange Mercy, released on 480 Records on September 12th, 2011. So for those of you keeping tabs at home and taking notes on this show, you'll know that this came out on that day. Oh, that's weird. This is one of my favorite albums by St. Vincent. It still holds up probably as my favorite album that she's ever made. It emerged from a really dark period of her life where she went through a long depression, and doesn't really show like there's a fix to that depression. It doesn't really sound like there was a way out. This album sounds like dealing with it and understanding with it, coming to terms with something, and trying to move forward, knowing it's going to be with you for a while. So this album was produced by John Congleton, who had produced her last album at this point, named Actor, who I did a review for that album a little while ago. It's on there somewhere. And this album, for me, is one of her most heartfelt, it's one of her most powerful, and I feel like it's one of her strongest efforts because it comes so from the heart. I feel like her guitar playing is sharp and exciting. Her singing is tense and full of anxiety and range. There's a lot happening with this album. So, in a nutshell, after she had finished touring for Actor, she decided that she wanted to kind of remove herself from New York City where she was living and get away from friends and places she knew, and wanted to go to Seattle, to a place where she wasn't super familiar, and just put herself on a writing retreat and see what happens. Just put yourself out into a foreign environment where you don't know anybody, you don't know the surroundings, you don't know your usual haunts, you don't go to the same coffee shops, and just see what happens. And so she holed herself up, I think for a month, and just wrote every single day like she went to work, and basically did like 12 hours a day just writing whatever came out, judgment-free zone. Let's see what happens. Let's see what sounds good, doesn't sound good, just write. So she did that, and then she took her songs down to Elmwood Studios in Dallas, Texas, and recorded the album down there with John Congleton. And the results, I think, are just absolutely fantastic. So let's jump into it. The first song on the album, Chloe in the Afternoon, the very first line on this album is, "You're all legs, I'm all nerves." And I think that's such an amazing line. I think the song itself sets up the tone of how much anxiety is on this album and how world-weary this viewpoint is throughout much of this record. But you just jump head first into this like spacey sci-fi eeriness that creeps up throughout a lot of this album. It's really frantic. The guitars are anxiety riddled. They can't find their footing. They can't find their grounding. And Annie's voice is delicate and fragile, and you instantly get sucked into this new world that she's created. Coming off of Actor, which has a lot of acoustic moments, a lot of piano, still kind of in a little bit of her jazz realm that was on her first album, Marry Me. But I feel like Actor was definitely that middle ground you needed between Marry Me and this one. You need that album to get to this one. But yeah, just a really, really expansive song, and you fall into this new world that she's created, and it falls right into the second song, Cruel, which I've read all kinds of reports about. From what I could figure out, it's a song about being bullied as a kid. It's easily one of the best guitar riffs she's ever made. Like, it stays in your head. It's so infectious. She is insanely talented at the guitar. She's one of my favorite guitar players, and I think one of the best guitar players ever. She's just absolutely fantastic. She knows how to shred, and she does it with such a unique talent that it's her. She's very much like her own style. Like if you hear Eddie Van Halen, you know what that sounds like. If you hear Jimmy Page or Jimi Hendrix, you know exactly who that is. That's St. Vincent's guitar playing, and that shines so much on this album. But it's particularly with a handful of tracks that she does her really big riffs on. But the line on this song, bodies, can't you see what everybody wants from you? It's like a body shaming song. The way she takes a deep breath in between her lines of Cruel, and the way the solo is super messy. The way the song builds up at the end, the amount of again tension and anxiety throughout this track is unreal. And the way her voice can get so airy and delicate and sweet and beautiful, and just completely sweep you away. Fantastic song. It's absolutely a fantastic song. Cheerleader, track 3 on this thing, very light strumming. It sounds like it was recorded in a cave down the hall, but I love that feeling. For me, this song feels like someone who's sticking up for someone who maybe shouldn't get sticking up for, and kind of realizing how much of yourself you can give to this person before you kind of lose yourself. And there comes a point where you kind of need to stop and realize this person might need more help on their own. They need to figure this out for themselves. You can only be a cheerleader for them for so long. This song is crushing. It's heavy. It's powerful. That slow dirge kind of feeling in the chorus. So I don't want to be a cheerleader no more. It's just crunching along. Very laboring, very heavy. Very slow moving, but extremely powerful, and again, fantastic song. Surgeon, at this point you're 4 for 4. I mean, it's just like hit after hit, quote unquote, hit after hit on this album. It's just unreal. Really big synth heavy track on Surgeon, and that heaviness plays really well against her voice, which can at times become a little flowery or a little light. But the tenderness and the detail and the presence in her voice is so precise and articulate that when you listen to her, you can just hang on every word she sings. It's a fantastic voice she has. She really has a truly magical voice. But again, the guitar on this one, I think, is easily one of the hardest guitar lines I've ever heard. Hard in the sense that hard to play. Like, I mean, I've been playing guitar for a long time, and there's no way I could do this like... Watching her fingers play this song, fantastic. She has perfect guitar fingers. I don't. I have big, clumsy drum fingers because I'm also a drummer. But, yeah, there's things she can do on the guitar that I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. But yeah, the middle of the song is a very cool breakdown where she does that guitar thing again, and there's like a really sparse drum, and then it picks up to this like big, loud, screechy guitar at the end. Just amazing. Just an amazing track. Northern Lights is the next song on this side, and I love the character and the feel on this one. There's a I'm trying to figure out exactly the story behind this one, but that whole I watched the Northern Lights, convinced it was the end of time, and just again another big build-up song. It goes into this big crashing, big frenzy of guitars and synthesizers, and I saw her do this song on the tour she did with David Byrne a handful of years ago on the Love This Giant tour. And they had this big theremin on stage. I'm not sure if it's a theremin on the song, but they played this theremin on the stage, and they would like take turns attacking the theremin, and it was so cool to see that. Track 6 on this song, Strange Mercy, the title track. This is absolutely one of the most heartbreaking and sobering moments on this album, and so just recently, over the summer, there was an article that came out in the New Yorker magazine, and online too, August 28th, 2017, that addressed a little bit of what I feel was part of her depression in 2010, which led to most of this album being created. Her father went to jail for I wrote it down to get the exact phrasing. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, convicted of defrauding investors in a penny stock scheme. And then she says, I wrote a whole album about it. So that's quoting the New Yorker from New York. And anyways, this song is so sparse and painful, and again, it's got that big patient heaviness to it. That as it carries forward, you're falling more and more into this story of a person who, basically, it sounds like the leader of the lead character in this song is talking about a father going to jail and trying to explain that either to younger siblings or young children or a future self. and trying to come to terms with that. There's a line that says, "If I ever find the dirty policeman, uh, who roughed you up? Oh, I don't know what." So it's like you can't imagine what that must be like to see someone you care about get taken away, basically. So it's just absolutely astonishing track. Again, this is one of the songs I saw her do live a long time ago, and the power that she had when she performed this was like breathtaking. It's such a powerful song. So I can see why she named the album after it. It's just an absolutely powerful song. Neutered Fruit is track 7 on this thing, and excellent vocal harmonizing throughout this whole track. There's lots of layers of vocals that happen. Again, kind of like a sparse music on this, but kind of like bouncy drums that happen throughout. And I really like the gurgling guitars that happen throughout this thing. It's kind of like a gurgling effect. That's probably the best word I could use for that. And I feel like there's a lot of work on this song to create like a slightly irritable front, trying to come to terms with the end of something and looking back on it, and not really feeling so sure about a situation. So again, another song kind of filled with tension and anxiety. Champagne Year. The first few lines of this song kind of really do evoke like this silent film era scene of a big grand ship about to leave, and there's confetti in the air. People are smiling or crying or saying goodbyes, or people waving. There's like bells going off and banners waving. It comes across as that big scene, like something you would have seen from Titanic or something. There's perfect imagery there. This ship going off on its maiden voyage, but there's some amazing lines on this song. It's not the perfect plan, but it's the one we got. Like sometimes life happens, and you just kind of like work with it and just kind of see what's gonna go. Work with what you have and go forward from there. Dilettante. This song is so striking sonically, just because there's like no echo on her voice. It sounds like she's in the room with you when she sings, and the drums are so sparse too. Love that feeling, and to have that so deep into this album completely catches you off guard, and I think its placement is fantastic. Apparently, it's a song about living in New York City and how crazy it can be, and no matter how much you love it, you still need to like get away once in a while, and not forget where you came from. And it's like a conversation between two people. Hysterical Strength. Really fuzzy guitars create this vibe against these like clopping sounding drums. And then the guitars make this big weird bendy kind of thing happen throughout, which her guitar playing just throughout this album is so hands down fantastic. This song for me, rereading the lyrics over and over again, and kind of assessing what I know now from that New Yorker article, I really feel like this is a conversation. And I feel like the first verse is like the daughter or a child talking to a father. The second verse is the father. The chorus is, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a narration. And then it's back to the child looking up again, talking to the dad, and ending with the dad. I never really saw it that way before, but the more I read the words and the way I look back on it now with the New Yorker article information, a lot of that makes sense. And then the last song on this album, Year of the Tiger, co-written with her mother, Sharon Clark. This song in 2010 was the Year of the Tiger, the Chinese Year of the Tiger, and was also the year of her depression, and I guess when everything kind of went down. So it's a song, for me, it's a song about living scared and looking around you and seeing things as they are and how they can be so normal. And there's like details that we try to put into our lives, hoping other people will notice. But at the end of the day, no one really notices that kind of stuff, or the effort you might put into something, when all that matters is looking after like a family, or looking after yourself, or trying to have true happiness. And the line, looking for normalcy, I guess, in a time where there isn't any. The line, "Oh America, can I owe you one?" I've really been trying to study that line and figure out what that means in the terms of this album, in terms of maybe her life at the time, from what we know, because she's a pretty private person. And rightly so. It's good to have that separation. So that, for me, leaves this album a little open-ended, which is interesting because sometimes it's good not to have all the answers. Like I've done a few albums on this channel where it's nice to not have all the answers because you keep coming back for it and you keep finding new interpretations as you go along. So with that, here's the back of the album. It's got the song titles there. And the inside has all the lyrics. So very cool. Nice packaging on this. This is a, I think it's a 2011 or 12 or 13 issue of this album. So it's got kind of like this like velvety feeling cover. The newer versions of this actually have the name, I think, pressed on the album jacket. But at the time, there was just a sticker that said St. Vincent, Strange Mercy. And then this is the actual record. So you got two different colored labels for the sides. Side two. So overall, this is a very heartfelt, painful, tense, anxiety-filled record, and I think it really is just truly one of her best albums. And her character of St. Vincent, I guess you can call it a character, has changed with each album she's put out. With the first one, she was very jazzy, kind of vaudevillian. With the second one, she was more of a like, I wouldn't even say folksy, but like folksy alternative. With this one, she's just like flat out spacey alternative. Maybe like, oh, she's described it as like sad housewife, sad 50s housewife or something. You know, and then Strange St. Vincent that came out after this, she described it as like New World cult leader or something. And she's got a new one out, Mass Seduction, which I'll do a review on soon. But this album for me, I think, really is her best album in my opinion, and it's my favorite of hers. It's beautiful, it's sad. Her guitar playing is absolutely sharp and characteristic and colorful, and there's a lot of hooks on this album, and there's also a ton of depth, which makes for a very fascinating listen and a rewarding listen, and something you want to come back to over and over again to kind of refocus and reassess as you play it each time. So that's it. St. Vincent, Strange Mercy came out in 2011. If I had to give this a rating, I'd probably give this thing a 9. It's an absolutely fantastic album. It's one of my favorite records. And yeah, go pick it up. Have you guys heard it? Do you like it? What do you think of it? Let's have a conversation down there in those comments down there. So my name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with St. Vincent, Strange Mercy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.